we go. All right. Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. I am your host, Nika Sherelle, and this is the ItCast Real Talk on Sex. The ItCast is our community outreach podcast that increases diversity in conversations on health and sexuality. Through this work, we are creating a world where all people feel loved, honored, and respected. We would love for you to go ahead and ask us anything. We want to hear from you. We want your questions. Our guests would love to be able to share and, provide whatever their knowledge they have. And you can get access to our bonus content on Patreon, patreon.com/Nika Sherelle. Go ahead and subscribe to this YouTube channel, share with your community, and let's get into the conversation. All right. So this week's topic is real talk on sex and money. And today in the booth, we have self-love coach, Dawn Light Amora. Hi, Dawn.
Hi. Thank you for having me, Nika.
Yes, thank you for being on the show. This is going to be incredible. So would you like to take a few minutes to just share about who you are and why you chose to do the show?
Yes, yeah, I would love to. So I'm Dawn Light Amora, and I am a spiritual psychology coach, self-love advocate, and I make a stand for the divine feminine, really, for healing all across the planet, healing intergenerational trauma, healing patterns that have not worked in your life that are preventing you from really thriving. And, I serve women, and I'm really here to help all women embody that have not worked in your life. All women to really heal and embody what they're here to do in this life, to be fully embodied in your sexuality and yourself and all parts of your life. So it's really a reclaiming of the exiled parts is the work I help each person do.
Wow. The exiled parts. That's deep. Yeah. In terms of generational trauma and the healing that you're talking about in those spiritual places, it's very easy to segment oneself. Like for years, I was like maybe 4 different people, or I needed to be 4 different people. I felt to really be with the different groups and people in my life. Mm-hmm. Like I couldn't be this way over here. I couldn't be that way over there because there was shame and judgment and fear coming from these different places. And when I was able to break that down, the healing did come from within me. Mm-hmm. So Absolutely. That's powerful.
It is powerful, and it's really fascinating to find out, because if you study psychology, you'll learn about how the ego operates, and it operates out of a place of needing to protect oneself. But what happens in our younger years is we're conditioned by our environment, our teachers, our family, our parents, and that conditioning, and it's masterfully crafted by spirit, really, is every soul chooses their family for, this is earth school. We're in earth school right now. We're all in learning, right? This is like earth ship, earth school. Here we are. All parts of life are our learning, and it's not happening to us. It's happening for our awakening. But what happens with that imprinting is it goes so deep to our core that we don't even realize when we're children. We witness things, we experience people saying things, and our consciousness, our unconscious parts of ourselves, because sometimes it's way even before cognition sets in our brain, before 7. And so what will really happen is we'll make these really formed identity belief structures about ourselves, which really become misidentifications later as an adult, when we're trying to move in that new area or new realm, and it'll activate all these parts of ourselves that are deeply incongruent because they're belief structures deep inside of ourselves that we didn't even know were there, that are really creating us and holding us back from being our fully empowered self.
Yeah. What I'm hearing you talking about is like cultural programming. Mm-hmm. It's something that I've heard you share about, and it's one of those things that it isn't all of us. Can you, I don't know if there's more to say around that topic, but I think that's really powerful in terms of how we are raised, how we're brought up, and the differences in the cultures that we live in, and then the greater society. Is there anything else you'd like to share on that topic?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, there's a lot on this topic. So of course I would love to share more. So for me, my background, like I was raised from a Texas family, and there was definitely racism coming from my father. I'm a child abuse survivor, and so I had to break those chains, to move on and move out. I moved to California when I was 25 because I was like, I had to make that boundary of like, I choose who's in my life from a conscious place, and love people with love and respect and care are going to be in my sphere, not dealing with trauma and craziness and all the things I had to endure as a child. But it's interesting because my mother, her family, comes from, she's the 19th child, my mother, she's the last of 19 children, and had nothing, literally. So there was a lot of deep things to break through around money in her consciousness, right? And then the taboo of like the sex piece, was taboo. Like there's this underlying, like, it's not okay to be expressed. She got shamed for wanting to dance and express herself and like wearing skirts. She couldn't wear pants. She couldn't wear, she got shamed for like these really things that were just innately feminine. My mother got shamed for it. So guess what? I had to do that healing in myself to break those chains. And so it made this really interesting blend of sex and money issues in my parents' dynamic that I witnessed all through my childhood. And that's why I was called to come on the show and do this, because I had this really core pattern playing out in my own marriage for a very long time of issues. It would just come forward of insecurity and issues, and I never felt safe to really fully disclose all parts of myself in a lot of ways before I got with my husband, and it's been a long journey of healing. But that pattern of them fighting about those topics really deeply ingrained in me these things that I had to break through, because it created such insecurity and self-doubt, and it was so deep in there that it took me years to figure it out and kind of pick it apart and hold it and look at it and love myself and work through it, right, with love, so that I could just lay it down and be free. I'm like, this is not mine. I don't have to carry this forward.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. And I'm really hearing you pointing to the generational trauma. It's like we learn things from our parents and the way that they operate in terms of relationships, money, love, sex, all these different things. And that gets embedded inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, like, the generational trauma is what I'm hearing is leading to the cultural programming that we then carry forward. I am so in that boat with you, just in terms of like, I was sexualized at a very young age, and being in that space of, like discovering myself and the insecurities and all the different things. And we didn't, or at least we had the consciousness that we didn't have a lot of money. And so for years, I went around thinking that I didn't have enough and that I wasn't enough. And there were all these layers inside of that conversation. So the onion is still peeling back, and you hit me with, oh gosh, when you said, I don't know, it was something about communicating that, and like with like being able to share that with your husband and feeling safe there. I'm like, ooh, yeah. Like,
well, there was so much there, and thank you for sharing that. I really acknowledged your vulnerability there, and it's so true. This is a hot button. This topic alone is the number one reason people divorce usually. It's when you do statistics and research, these topics are hot buttons for people in marriage and relationships, and even out of a relationship. There's a lot there for people to heal, and in no matter what culture we come from.
right.
And so, this is such a powerful topic, and I was called to share about it because it's been a long journey of working on these things in my own dynamic, and feeling fully held, allowing a man to fully hold me in a place where I watched my dad be so horrible to my mother, and it ingrained in me that it was not safe to reveal all parts. And in fact, I witnessed my mother actually change my first time I got a C. she changed my report card in front of me and basically taught me to like withhold information from a man, because I knew that if I left to go home, I was going to get my ass beat. You know what I mean? Like, and she was protecting me from that experience, but it set it up in my consciousness to teach me that men are not safe.
Right.
You know, men are not safe with my body. Men are not safe with my money. Like, there was a lot of that in their relationship, and it's transferred to me, and I had to kind of really dive into picking it apart over the years. And I can honestly say now I have such an amazing relationship with my husband, and you know, it's safe. It's safe, and I've allowed myself to get there through the healing. And it took, you know, graduate school cracked me wide open. That was the gift I gave to myself, because, you know, and I'm so grateful for that experience. And it's just the gift that keeps on giving, because I'm able to serve so powerfully. I'm able to help my clients. I'm able to pinpoint where things are specifically that they were never able to see. I'm helping to help them see the patterning and like where it started and how it plays out. And they're just like, oh my God, I had no idea. It just hits them so deeply when we discovered that. And it's such a gift, you know, being able to work on myself all these years. I've learned how to like do it for others. And the gift of graduate school really helped me unearth and crack the code on the deep rejection pattern that I feel I know I came in as a soul to heal. And that's why I chose that family dynamic to begin with, because there was some part of me that believed I was rejected. And that's why I chose a dynamic to be in a family unit that abuse experience. Yeah. And then when I finally like laid it down and I saw it inside of myself truly, that I was like, I got it. It's to the core of my being. I was like, oh my goddess, I have been rejecting my own light. And I wept in tears and just pure joy and ecstasy of just, it melted off of me.
Yeah. Wow. I was totally going to ask you to share more about the rejection dynamic. And I'm so grateful that you did, because I like the pattern, like I totally share that. And I went through this history of going after unavailable people. Yeah. You know, like I had already, like I went through a lot of bullying and stuff as a kid. And I got rejected so much that I started to reject myself in order to protect myself.
Yes. Yes.
Like,
yes.
All these walls went up to where, you know, like anything that would require me to get to deeper levels of intimacy, not on the table. Like, so powerful. And so I love that you shared that, because it gives me more insight to like what I'm going through and what I've gone through. And I'm sure that there are people out there listening who are feeling this as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And it's so, you know, because we tend to judge the outside as us, right? And it is a part of us. It's all God. Everything is. It's all an aspect or a part of God. But it's like the outside circumstance becomes more important than the inside on some level. And we take it to mean something about ourselves when we experience the outside. And that's what you got to get to, is what do I make it mean about me?
Ooh. Because she's skinny, I'm wrong and bad.
Right. And so who taught you that? Right?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Who taught you that? Where did you learn that? And it's really an opportunity to just fully 100%, I forgive myself wholeheartedly for the misidentification that I do it wrong, I'm not worthy, I'm rejected, whatever the belief is. I forgive myself. And it's simple. It's so simple. Just place your hand on your heart and I forgive myself.
I forgive myself.
I forgive myself for buying into the misidentification that I could ever be rejected.
I forgive myself for ever buying into the misidentification that I could ever be rejected.
Because the truth is, I am love. I'm accepted.
Because the truth is, I am love. I am accepted.
And I accept myself.
And I accept myself. Thank you. Thank you. If you're listening out there in post, I invite you to rewind and join along with us. That was very powerful.
Welcome.
Thank you. I've done some forgiveness work in the past, and it's really interesting. Like, there's always something new that comes up. There's always something new. And it's so beautiful to like heal those parts of myself and like show myself that love that I never felt like I got from the outside. It actually transforms my ability to receive.
It does. Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. That is a very valuable key thing you just said. It's true. It's actually doing that for ourselves and giving ourselves that validation, that feeling that we always were missing, that confirmation, that acknowledgement. It opens the doorway for us to experience seeing spirit on the outside, our reflection on the outside with a new lens of perception. And we can open the doorway to more receiving, more love, more health, more vibrancy, more friendships, more wealth,
more
like
sex,
more abundance,
more money,
all of it, more sex and more money. Yes.
Yes.
They do go together so well. I mean, you really
Let's
do.
talk about that. Because I mean, they're like, and I think people get just as caught up when it comes to talking about sex as they do when it comes to talking about money. So like, they're so deeply intertwined. Like,
well, the thing is, you know, sex is like how we all got here on the planet, if you think about it. So why are we shaming the very innate thing that is our human body is made to do it? We're made to procreate if we choose consciously, hopefully. And it's such a beautiful gift that spirit has given us. Why do we need to shame it or wrong it, right? And I think it's just been created in the world that that aspect of shaming goes so deep, right? To where it's you know, deeper than what we perceive it to be for each person. And I think that it separates one from believing that they're powerful or they're creator or they're connected to creator. You know, that flow of energy is our vitality, it's our life force, and there's nothing wrong with enjoying it as long as you're not hurting anyone or doing anything to hurt someone. If you're just loving your energy and your body, that's healthy.
Yeah, 100%. You know, one of the things that I say is that sex has touched all of our lives in one way or another. Like,
it has.
And there's so much healing in being able to talk about it. And like you said, connect to that energy and that life force, because there's so much that comes through that connection, like that you can miss if you're not present to what all is available.
So I did this very powerful thing over this last year. I did this program with a woman named Sierra Sullivan who does Portal Priestess. And you actually, it's a sacred container and it's, you know, for women. And you go in this experience and you actually, it's very, very sacred. They do it through a very, very sacred way, but it's reclaiming this part of ourselves that a lot of shame can be around, especially if you've had sexual trauma or anything. So it was very fascinating. I've never done this before, but you actually, you know, do a sacred ritual with yourself and you take a snapshot of your yoni, and then they pick 2 women at a time and they do a sacred ritual like to welcome them on, but then you show images of you, you know, it's a private group, you know, it's led in a conscious way and it's not shared on Facebook and any place like that. It's very, very respectful and conscious and sacred. But what happens is they take images, you take your images of your yoni and you share it with these women, and the women give readings. Like you can read your palm or you can get the tarot read. You can read the images or the symbols that are going on. And then you craft your own basically powerful vision board or something you want to make around your personal symbols that are held within. So it's like a sacred embodied, like if whatever you see that's in your personal yoni or they see, and they do a whole recording. It's amazing. It was such an empowering experience because I was shamed when I was young by my other even sisters around like what my vagina looked like. And I was, I had a hard time with that. And it blocked me from fully receiving sexual pleasure even when I was older, and having sexual relationships. And, thankfully my husband's helped me fully heal that and like, fully enjoy my sex life and, being with him and loving him up and loving us up,
Yes.
and to tie in the money piece, like I learned, with orgasm, it's really important to tie in when you're having an orgasm, tie in your future manifestations of what you want. That is the most important time. Like, think about what you want to manifest in your life when you're having lovemaking and, ask your beloved, your partner to join in that sacred. It's such a sacred time together to just be deeply present with one another and infuse your magic there.
Yes, the magic, like, it's so true when you're in that energetic space and it's cyclical and you are open to receiving, you're open to receiving. Like whatever you are asking for, like you're receiving it.
Yeah.
And that's really, really incredible. One of the things you talked about is like that whole vaginal shame conversation. And I honestly like talking about cultural programming. There's so much around pornography and like, this is how you should look. And, there's like labiaplasty happening now because of the amount of shame that women are having around how their parts look. Mm-hmm. And I think it's, I think it's unfortunate that women have the experience of not being able to accept themselves for who they are, as they are.
Well, and it's so powerful because now is an opportunity to come home to that, and it's a time for all women to stand in their preciousness and their sacredness, and they're whole and complete, no matter how you appear, no matter what your body shape, size, whatever is you're whole and complete as you are.
Yeah. Thank you. Can we double back to the photo part?
Photo part? Yes.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So when you said that, my first thought was, I hadn't seen my vagina since I was like 15, my yoni since I was like 15. And then I did this workshop a few years ago and I was like, oh, wow, she looks different. And it was this like experience of like, yes, the body grows and it evolves and it changes. And when you said that, my first thought was, I need to do yearbook photos because like she changes every year. And it would be good to kind of like have a record of that and like that understanding and being able to grow together because I grow and she grows.
It was transformational to watch these women that had different stories, different experiences to go through it and to watch their healing happen in front of your eyes around just being held, because I got to be on the screen and have my own personal reading and experience that gateway, that portal, and then be one of the women and being like, oh my gosh, I see an eagle and I see a dolphin and I see, like all the, and it's just it was so sacred and beautiful. And every woman felt so nurtured by it and not afraid and like, taking the photos and doing it. It was all a guided experience to do it in the most beloved, sacred, like your body is your beloved, right? If you think of your body temple, it's a temple.
I love that. Can you share again the name of this workshop? And
yes, it's called Portal Priestess. So if you just Google Sierra Sullivan Portal Priestess, it's a powerful experience. If you're interested in that, like I highly recommend it. Love them.
Oh, beautiful. I'm definitely I love that.
It is so worth it. Like as a woman, and I saw it as a reclaiming act for myself. And I was like, not that I really felt any shame any longer, because I didn't at that point, but it was a really powerful, well, for me, I'll share vulnerably for me what it was about for me. So my reading came right in between. I had my first doctor's visit for really entering perimenopause. And so I had my first doctor's visit entering perimenopause, and then the reading came right in the middle. And then I had the doctor's visit where she was actually reading giving me full download of that, confirming that it was actually like happening for me, and that because my body had gone through all these really weird changes through COVID, and not sleeping and sweat, all the things, night sweats that come along with that time period. And it just was so deeply confirming that, this passage that I'm in is mine, and it's a rite of passage, and I don't have to shame it or wrong it, even though it's confusing and challenging and comes with its own set of challenges, that I don't have to look at it as wrong or bad, that I'm exactly where I need to be. And it was so beautiful. So I just embraced that time period as welcoming versus wronging. And I leveraged the program and that moment of my reading to really embrace my new change. And like, really, I loved it because one of the women was like even a menopausal coach. She like guides women. And so she shared this valuable information with me and got on a call afterwards and gave me love, and was amazing. And she shared that, like, when a time of a woman's life, when she stops bleeding, it's not that she's losing, because when we lose our blood, we're bleeding, we're losing in a way, we're losing our vital power in a way. And so when a woman stops bleeding, it's like you're holding your power. And I was like, that is so powerful to think of it in that way. It was like, it's such a reframe from it disempowered, right? Because it's so culturally, we're not really taught in our culture these days in America. I don't hear a lot of talk. And more I meet coaches and women, in the industry that are really shedding a light on what goes on for a woman in that time period. But before, when I was younger, I didn't know much about it at all, because it was kind of shamed. It was wrong that, getting older as a woman.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry, but like, what part of a woman's age and transformation in her body doesn't get shamed? Like, I just, like, when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, it's another arena of it. And it's a breakthrough. And like, I think about it and I'm like, I don't know how it feels, but I hear that like, there are some good parts. Anyway.
There's some really good parts. And, I supported myself. I decided to get on, what is it? Bioidentical hormones. I made that choice for myself, and they're identical. And it was the best choice I made for me, because I needed that support. And it cleared up brain fog, because I'm busy. I'm working. I have an 11-year-old. I'm married. I have a lot going on in my life. And so I was like, I can't do this laying around feeling not well. Like, this is not okay for me. So I knew that I needed to act in a new way and support myself. So I did a bunch of research and I made that choice, and I am glad I did. It's the best thing. Now I'm weight training regularly on, doing what I love to do, taking care of myself, right? That's the self-love piece, right? Showing up for my body and what it needs.
Yeah, absolutely. That's phenomenal. I love that you did that work as a part of that healing and transformation process. Like, yeah, it's incredibly powerful. Um, okay, so
So we've covered a lot of ground in this conversation so far.
Oh my gosh. So I do want to talk about like the conversation around how money and sexuality are not only how they impact relationships and impact each other, but really this conversation around currency. And I'll share why I bring this up. When I was really young, one of
Uh-oh. Think we're frozen for a moment. She'll be back in
hang on.
There we are.
There you go.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, hopefully that doesn't happen again. But yeah, so when I was much younger, I might have had to have been about 11. One of my brother's girlfriends was telling me that marriage is a form of prostitution. That was like the first thing she said. And I was like,
maybe she's frozen again.
Yes, she is.
Oh, yeah, that was a good moment to
Freeze on.
go into freezing mode. Exactly. Yeah. I'm anxious to hear what she has to say
I
about
know. It's like
marriage is prostitution.
marriage is prostitution. That's a very wild belief.
Yeah. And it's very interesting. I'm curious about that. Nika, are you back with us?
I am back via audio. I'm not sure what's happening over here, but the funny part is I'm thinking maybe I wasn't meant to share that story.
Oh, possibly. Anyway,
But yeah, that part about like marriage is prostitution really just kind of blew my mind. And I don't agree, but I did see the correlations that she was making around like the exchange. And I think that it's something that I think people out there feel and don't talk about to a degree. So I'd love to dive into that, and I'll try to see if my video comes back.
Yeah, it's interesting that your video went away. Oh, there you are. Yay. So my take on marriage is not, I don't have that take on marriage. I really believe I entered into marriage with I was celibate before I met my husband, and I made that choice because I had always given this was part of the breaking the cultural conditioning and the intergenerational patterning for me before I was with my husband, I was so longing to have that divine partner that I would give myself over too soon. And then I would have to get out of it, realizing like, this is not a match, And so I was allowing sex to come way too soon. And so I needed for myself, I realized I just had to relinquish it all. I literally did. I just said, you know what, Spirit, this is not working. I am not good at this. I'm done. And just said, my only relationship was really with you anyway. And that's all that matters to me. And if I just need to live my life not married, not having children, not all of that, then I surrendered to that. And I accepted it fully. And I fully fell in love with myself. And I was dating myself and in love with myself and not seeking partnership at all.
Yeah.
And I did that for a year and 3 months. And my husband came into my life. And I had told Spirit, if you are meant to me to have a partner, then you need to make it neon flashing signs. Like not slight signs, but neon, like big time. And so one of my dearest sisters on a star actually pushed me and my husband. I'm shortening the story. We met on a waterfall. It was a very profound experience, but so we're soulmates, my husband and I, and it was definitely meant to be. The universe kept putting us like, when are you two going to figure it out kind of thing? Because I was oblivious, like I'm not looking for a partner. And the truth is like, he is my divine counterpart and my beloved. So I entered into my relationship with him. I made sex last. When I started dating him, he was so amazing and just sat across from me and was like, however you want to be in my life, if you want to just be my friend or, whatever you need that to be, whatever the relationship needs to be, I'm open. I just want to be in your life. You're such a goddess. And I was wildly in love with him after that. I was like, wow, I've never had a man say that to me in that way. And he just is so kind and showing up. He shows up consistently in his loving. And I see our relationship as a temple, as a home, as one.
Yeah.
And it's holy. It's a holy experience. And I can be that sexual vixen and have that holy experience combined. It's both, in that way. And it serves him and serves me and, serves us. And it's wonderful. Like, so I don't really have ever had a belief structure that marriage is prostitution.
Yeah. So let me reframe my question because it totally wasn't about marriage. Just in terms of relationships, like one of the things that comes up is like people will use sex as a bargaining chip. Or like there are all these different dynamics that come up inside of relationships that people do and don't think or talk about. So as a self-love coach and doing the work that you do, like, what have you seen?
Yes. Even in myself, I can honestly say before I did a lot more healing work on myself, we did have, and it was part of that pattern that I was speaking about, the sex and money pattern from my own parents. It played out in my marriage where I actually withheld because I watched my mom do that with my dad. And it was always like, it was never spoken about. So it was just a behavior I watched her do. And it transferred into me without unconsciously. Wasn't even thinking about it as a young one. But children pick up everything. They absorb everything, what's going on. Even when you don't think they are paying attention, they are. And so I think that it just absorbed into me that was the way to do it, and they had very strange dynamics going on in their marriage. And I found myself that withholding piece, right? Because it is a woman's place of power. And when we don't feel that our needs are being met, then that was what was going on for me. It's like I wasn't feeling like my needs were met. And so I would withhold in that way. And then it would cause all these weird hiccups and fights, and like his needs weren't being met. And so it was like this bargaining for our needs to be met in a very odd, unconscious way. And so I'm so thankful to know that we don't have that going on any longer. And I help my clients work through that also. And it's amazing. It's amazing to just lay it down and to find out where the roots come from and really like lean into exploring what it is so that you can free yourself. You don't have to show up in a withholding way. And people only withhold in all kinds of ways, all kinds of relationships, not just sex and money piece, but when someone withholds, it's because they truly don't feel safe. They don't feel their need is being met. And that's the root of it, really. And it's just an opportunity to become curious, to become vulnerable, to talk about what isn't being met inside of you, and to meet it in yourself, feel it into your heart, hold your womb, and ask yourself, where do I not feel safe? Where do I not feel held? Where do I not feel met? And then acknowledge, oh, wow, I'm constricting. I'm cutting off the flow. I'm not giving of myself because I don't feel met.
Yeah. My experience is one of like giving too soon. Like I want you to want me or to like me. So like, how can we move this process along? And the way I grew up in Missouri, right in the Bible Belt. And the conversation was, you don't have sex until you're married. And if you have and so I was like, well, if I have sex with you, like we belong together, whether it made any sense or not. And it was an experience of actually possessing, like trying to use sex as a mode of possessing someone, which is really interesting. And, there are all sorts of ways in which this arises. I love what you said about not feeling safe. It's when I think about that, drawing back and not really for me, when it's happened, there have been a multitude of things. And one of them was financial security. I can't afford to make this choice right now. And I have to shift the direction that I'm going in. And, that has shown up in relationships more than once. We weren't talking about money. And it was something that just arose out of the silence, actually.
And what came up for you around that?
Oh my God, it sucked. It was horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah.
I lost a lot that I had built,
yeah.
Just from the inability to communicate my needs.
Yeah. I'm so sorry for that. But how empowering, right? What a learning.
Yeah.
What a learning to always come from that deep knowing of what you need, and that's the learning that comes out of that. When we move out of a place of disempowerment or make choices out of disempowerment, it always can come, it gets entangled.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're moving from a place of it's not going to meet us. But when we step back and we actually acknowledge, what are my needs? How can I hold myself here? How can I acknowledge myself and be empowered in yourself, that you don't need to do anything outside of yourself that doesn't feel aligned?
Yeah.
you know? And it's like, when we make choices in that way, life really flows. Our relationships flow because we're honoring ourselves. And then when we honor ourselves, it naturally honors all those around us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it takes making what we call mistakes, right? They're not mistakes. They're just learning opportunities. But when we make them enough and we realize, wow, that doesn't really work for me, that behavior that why am I doing that? Is that really me? Oh my gosh, that's not me. That's a learned behavior that I picked up from someone, whoever it was, right? And then you acknowledge it, you catch yourself, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's not really my authentic self.
Yeah.
And then that's where you can make the change and forgive yourself for what transpired, what happened, you know, and let go of judging yourself for anything that occurred, whatever the learning is. No more judging it. Let it go. Let go of judging the other person, all people involved. And then you can really learn to cleanse the lens of perception around how you hold the experience and glean the learning for yourself. You know, and then you're like, oh, wow, I'm learning to stand in my power there versus I'm learning to speak for my truth versus be subdued and follow along with what the other person wants. Right. And that's a self-honoring, right? To learn. And it takes time to activate this vocal speaking. And when you have shame, it takes time.
It does. It does.
It does. This natural place of like being empowered in our voice wasn't always here for me. I can honestly own that. Like, it took a long time.
Yeah. Mine is still developing. Like, and you know, it's really powerful. The times when I've actually felt like my throat space, this right here, open up, they have been times of like huge emotional transformation and like this needing for something to come out. And as I've grown, I'm able to speak more and more to my needs. And what I love about what you're saying is actually knowing your needs. Like, that's step one, is like knowing what you need, knowing what's going to support you.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and then actually being able to communicate with that with yourself, like actually accepting, like, this is actually what I need right now. And then to be able to communicate that to others, like without expectation, and just to be able to, like, you know, be honest in that space. Yeah. Yeah.
And doing that helps one let go of any people pleasing that may be involved, right? Because can
we talk about codependency?
I think it's been laden through this whole conversation, honestly, you know? Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh, that's real. That's real. And people pleasing is a big deal. It's a big deal. So some of the things that I did pick up, like you mentioned, and I know we've kind of touched around this too, like the financial anxiety. And actually what I was looking at is like the idea of like the pressure on the masculine identified to be the provider. And so like when we're looking at that provider role, what that looks like, and how it shows up, like I'm sure people want to know like what's underneath that, or well.
Oh my gosh. Well, I can just speak from my own life experience, right? Like, and my clients too. For me, it showed up in my life, like witnessing my dad be very controlling, you know, and really hiding things and not being, I mean, I got shamed. I got told when I was a child, honestly, that I cost too much money.
Mm-hmm.
And that transpired into all kinds of weird behaviors later of, you know, wanting, I just have nice taste. I like, you can lay out a whole items of things without any name tags and I'll just gravitate towards the most expensive thing because I just can, I don't know, there's something about it that I just pick it up and I'm like, oh, I love this shiny, beautiful thing. And then it's like, oh, it's the most expensive one on the thing. That's just how it goes most of the time in my world. And so it's nothing wrong with that. I came into the world as a preemie, and I guess I had a lot of medical bills because to keep me alive, literally. And so it was a horrible thing to say to your child. And I forgive him for that because he was just in his wild, unconscious way. It was his own fears, you know, working out. And so it's interesting watching my dad's paradigm around how he treated money. And it was always so important to him that it was more important than actual human value and connection and authenticity. And, how someone appeared on the outside was way more important than actually, like, we had to keep it together. It was like, keep it together. Nobody needs to know that we're super crazy and, toxic over here.
Family business.
Yeah. And it was just like, no, like I came along and I was like, no, we're not sweeping this under the rug. Like I was that person in my family. I was like, in fact, we're going to pull the whole rug up and out the door we go with it. And all the dirt and dust is going to be exposed. Like I was just, I was what they call the scapegoat in traditional, in traditional psychological terms for family dynamics. And I don't regret that role at all because I helped the healing come through. And my dad definitely, he was very masculine and he was very much like, I control things. And so I got it ingrained in me that that's what, the natural role of like women are underneath men, all of that could come along. And that's all broken through my consciousness. No way. I don't believe that at all now, but it took some time. I'm 47 now. It took some time to arrive at that healing in my own psyche, and now I view and fight for women's rights. Women deserve all the same equal rights as men, to be paid equal, all the things, right?
Yeah, there's a long list of, like, I hear people talk about, like, why do women need, like, alimony and stuff like that? And I'm like, well, you don't get the system and the way that society has been built to have women be reliant on men. Like, there's a whole understructure. And being able to break through that and do something different is a whole different conversation.
Oh my gosh, I feel so juicy empowered by this because every woman I work with to help them break through their own issues of whatever their stuff has been and them rise to making a new level of income, a new way of impact, them stepping out and building their own business, impacting others. Like that's how we make change on the planet, helping the woman, because the women are going to heal the world.
Hey, I love all of y'all out there, and
I love the men too. But the thing is, I love the men too. I'm not saying I don't love the men, but women have this natural ability when we come into ourself and our empowerment, then we naturally take care of the children, take care of the men. We want to build, we want to network, we want to, make all whole.
Yeah. That creation energy, like that comes from like that whole life uterine experience. Like there is creation energy in there. And I completely agree. I mean, men have been running the world for quite some time, and well, we see where we are.
Time of the divine feminine rising. Yeah. It really is.
So one of the things, like when I was growing up, my programming, my mom was she was the primary breadwinner. Yeah, it's like she had her own business. She was bringing in lots of money. And at the same time, we were in this consciousness of, we don't have enough money. We can't afford that. Why can't we be like them, the people who have money, and all these different constructs? And so as I grew up, I actually learned to shrink instead of grow. Like I was like, oh, we can't afford that. Like I want to make sure that I can afford at least these things. And I never really allowed myself to do what it took to bring in more and more abundance, such that, like life could be easy.
Yeah.
Like literally, we can't afford that became, I don't have any money, which is so disempowering that what you do have, you don't actually have.
Yeah, you're not letting it in, because the moment you say yes to whatever it is that lights you up inside, that little tingle of excitement that comes along when you see something you want, then you just say yes to it. You don't have to know how it's going to arrive in your life. You don't have to know the how.
Yeah.
All you have to do is activate the yes and let the universe deliver it. but it took me a long time to learn that. You know what I mean? Like I also had a lot of money stuff to break through. And my parents, I grew up in a middle way. Like we had two homes when I was growing up, like one in the city and one in the country, and both my parents worked. My mom had a business and my dad. And so there was money, a lot of money flow, you know what I mean? But it came with its own like strings attached, like it was never given freely. My dad was super, super stingy with it and never paid for it. I mean, I'm sure he paid for the basics, but there was never a sense of plenty from him ever. And I never, ever asked for anything from him ever because I knew it was going to come with like this whole sense of like guilt and burden. So I was like, no way, and never asking for anything from you. And my mom was always the generous one. I am who I am today because of my mother. Love you, Mom.
Love it, love it, love it. Love you too, Mom. I know she's watching. and a lot of good lessons in there. Like everything that happens to us happens for a reason, and we get to learn and we get to grow and we get to heal.
It's so true. And it's so exciting because even in my younger years, I watched my mom rise out of, abuse and staying in a relationship too long. And I watched my mom do this, and I watched my mom come home to self-love, and I watched my mom choose herself. And I watched my mom, she joined Mary Kay when I was young. And at the age of 7, started going out and doing like these empowerment meetings and, like boosting for women, even though it was like in the makeup industry that was laden with self-love and laden with self-empowerment in there. That was the work my mom was doing then. And it was so precious to see her do that and feel good about herself and make money and like succeed. Like she won the like pink, the pink car and the whole thing, right?
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. And so that was really, even though I was like, oh, pink, I didn't want to have anything to do with pink. Then now look at me, I'm wearing pink. So it's interesting because like that was my mother's experience, but it so formed me that there's some part of us that was a shared dream. I think that our souls aligned on. That's like I have that same shared dream of women's empowerment, but I do it in a very different way, right?
I love it. Yes. Yes. And there's so many opportunities to do it. Speaking of women's empowerment, please tell us about your work and how we can find more of you. I know everyone wants to know.
Oh, okay. So I have a really juicy offering coming up. It's called, ready? It's a 4-day Sovereign Queen activation. Please feel free to jump in. I'm sure that you're going to share the links, right, that I provided. And it's going to happen April 25th through the 28th. I'm very, very excited. You're going to get it. You're going to get a Sovereign Queen activation. I'm going to give away many gifts, including the 2 big final prizes will be 2 full participants to go through my program that I'm offering, which is also called Unleash Your Sovereign Queen. And so the 4-day challenge is really a powerful opportunity to come home to yourself, to discover what's going on for you. It's a real powerful story around laying down any issue with, have you felt imbalanced in your marriage in any way? Have you felt, underappreciated, not acknowledged in any way? Because this was the paradigm that I had to break through. So this 4-day challenge is built for you to step in and activate your sovereign queen and really celebrate yourself and see your patterning, but graciously learn to let it go. And so there's going to be amazing, prizes given away, tools and tips along the way. All 4 days are built with juicy tidbits. So I'm not going to give too much away, but it's a really exciting opportunity. It's all free. Come and enjoy it for 4 days with me, and you can join on the link.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. Awesome. And the links are in the chat. We've got all the other information. And is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners, our audience, before we wrap up? Any other tidbits?
Oh my gosh. Well, I am just super, super excited to do this show with you today and share all the awesome information we shared. The Sovereign Queen Challenge, I'm very much looking forward to really activating my sisters and lifting, right? That whole consciousness of rising tides lifts all boats. Well, this is a rising tide moment. So I encourage you to jump in, because every woman's birthright is to know herself as sovereign queen. And that way you can have the embodied life, the love you want, activate that trust piece. Because if you've had distrust in your relationships in any way, then this is an opportunity to reclaim that piece.
And you said this first bit is free, yes?
Yeah, the 4 days are free.
Is there like a limited number of spaces?
It's whatever Zoom, like Zoom limit. So it's pretty wide open. I probably have a lot availability for people to jump in. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, I know a lot of people out there who would love to be a part of that conversation. And this is about diversity and equity. So like bringing it to all. Yeah.
Yes. And it's really for the woman that's really seeking the expansion in her relationship and in herself, mostly, because this work I've done, I was able to create a complete role reversal where I was no longer, because I had a wounded masculine aspect inside of me that was playing out this, because I was the dynamic with my father was so intense, it created a wounded aspect inside of me where I related to myself as disempowered and not fully empowered. And that carried over in my relationships. And so the work I help women do is lay down that conditioning where you can really fully claim yourself and have all the life you desire to have, all the parts, be juicy and amazing and activated, and know your power, know your worth.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not from a place of, just here in the mind, but a fully embodied experience.
Yeah. When I mention equity and diversity, I'm looking at the financial equity, because there's a lot of people who don't get invited into these spaces who need this work, like deeply. And I'm so glad that we didn't miss this part, the wounded masculine aspect. And like, for myself, being like having my mom be the breadwinner, I very much felt like that's who I am. That's what I provide. Like, that's who I'm going to be for my family, no matter what that looks like. And in that space, it's like, there's a part in me that's like, oh, you don't have to do this. There's nothing you have to prove. And I feel like there's something out there in that world where like, we're constantly, I mean, honestly, putting that onus and that pressure on men and the masculine identified in relationships. It's like, that's where it goes. And even if it's not in that aspect, it's like we still put the masculine on it. Like, who wears the pants in the family? Like that shit. So yeah, I'm really glad we didn't miss that topic.
It's such a powerful one, because what really went on was, because I had the wounded masculine playing out, there was a part of me that felt rejected, not seen. And then I was always surrendering over my power to the masculine. There was a fight around who was the masculine, because I was over identified in myself. Like I didn't trust that part of myself. And therefore it transpired and I didn't trust a man.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't allow the love that's really in my life to fully hold me. And then we were kind of fighting over that role in a way without, he won't say that he was fighting over it, because he's like, I stand in my masculine, and he does. And for me, that's what was going on for me, creating that dynamic. And it created a disimbalance, and it showed up wildly out of balance. So now there's balance, it created a full role reversal. And so it's powerful because I feel so held by him. And I could allow myself to be in my rightful position of like divine feminine and balanced masculine and feminine inside myself. Right. And that's the offering, to come home to that for each woman, right? That you don't have to have this struggle with the feminine or the masculine inside of you, that you can have a balanced approach.
Yeah.
Because they both matter. They're both important. And it's about integration of the two, marriage of the two.
That's right. That's a large part of our journey. Okay, give me just a second. There we go. All right. Well, Dawn, thank you so much for being on the show today. This is incredible. I can't wait for everyone out there to get to hear and be a part of this. Again, this was one of the topics from the very beginning. So thank you for fulfilling that and being here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. It's such a lovely show. Thank you
you
for having me.
All right, everyone out there, thank you so much for joining us today. The ItCast is our community outreach podcast that increases diversity in conversations on health and sexuality. Through this work, we are creating a world where all people feel loved, honored, and respected. You can ask us anything. Please send in your questions. We want to hear from you. You can click the link in the comments below to have your questions answered on the show. And get access to our bonus content on our Patreon, patreon.com/Nika Sherelle, and learn more about the work at theitcast.com. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and share with your community. We will see you next week.